Candidate Dr. Syarif Hidayat with a presenter and lead discourse makers among Sydney's Indonesian migrant speakers, what do nah and can reveal. So we kindly invite candidate Dr. Syarif Hidayat Nasir, SPD MPD MA. Time is yours to share the finding in your research.
Just double check before going any further. Can you all see my slide?
Yeah.
Really nice. Good.
That's really good. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Dear my fellow researchers, presenters, of course, moderator, my old friend. It's very good to see you today, and also to all audiences. Thanks for having me. I'm very honored to be here presenting and sharing my talk on some bits of my current research within Indonesian migrant community in Australian context. By the way, I'm Syarif. I'm a PhD research student in applied linguistics at the University of Sydney, Australia. I'm also a lecturer in English language studies at the University of 19 November, Kolaka, Southeast Indonesia. Anyway, so given the time is very brief, only 12 minutes, I'm going to try my best to fit the time. So I would like to focus and dedicate my session talking about two bits of my current research, which related to discourse markers spoken by Indonesian migrant speakers by focusing on the case of Nah and Kan. All right. So before going any further, I'm just gonna check with you guys. Could you please raise your hand if you are familiar with discourse markers? Maybe you can give me some sign or raise hand if you do familiar with discourse markers, what discourse markers are in Indonesian language. Yeah, seems not that familiar. So I would like to start with what discourse markers are. So to give you some background, what discourse markers in Bahasa Indonesia. So pretty much like in other languages, English, Chinese, Korean as well, Indonesian language or what we call Bahasa, we do have discourse markers. And things like ko, ya, and the two focus that I'm going to talk today, nah and kan, we often use this kind of markers in our interaction, in our daily interaction, either formal or informal. And the fact is, these markers are unique and multifunctional. However, unfortunately, even though we pretty much use this resource marker in our interaction, many of them are still understudied. So let's say one example, almost none studies ever been conducted within the diasporic community overseas. And that's also probably one motivation why I'm eager to conduct this study, because none of study ever been conducted on such case in any migration communities, including in an Australian context. And further, beyond that, according to ABS is Australian Bureau of Statistics. That's the statistic measuring all migrant people coming out to Australia. And according to this statistic released in 2021, New South Wales is one of the states across Australia considered to be one of the biggest Indonesian population across the country, pretty much like in Victoria, in South Australia as well. But then if you take a look at what's happening in migration, so it is said that the long exposure to other languages, it could influence our native language. So let's say I'm Indonesian, I'm staying in the UK, I'm staying in Australia, where English is spoken every day. Maybe my Indonesian will be influenced from English. Or having said that, it can also from some kind of code switching and code mixing. And let's see. So if you take a look, this is one community that I ever deal with when I did my data collection across the New South Wales. So this is one of Indonesian community located in Kogarah, New South Wales. And this community is very active. It involves speakers from diverse religious background, including Christians, including Muslims, even including Hindus, yeah, and other religious background. Moving on. So to do so, ladies and gentlemen, I have two recent questions. The first one is, I would like to see what 10 positions do nah and can, given this discourse marker, as I said, mentioned, occur across our interaction. And the second one is how such markers deployed by the speaker. So I would like to see how nah can is employed by Indonesian migrant speaker in Australian context. And that's why I employed and involved 15 participants who are all Indonesian migrants. They have been residing in the city for more than 4 years, and they come from different religious backgrounds. I do interviews and I recorded at multi occasions. And in doing the data analysis, I use interactive linguistic framework proposed by Cooper and Coughlin. I also use ELAN. ELAN is such a modern and complex transcription. And also I do Santa Barbara conversion in order to gloss my data. So take a look. So this is one example. If you could, I would like to draw your attention now to see how ELAN looks like. So this is basically how ELAN looks like in doing transcription. So by doing ELAN, I can see the notes, I can see the intonation, I can see the timing, like what time the intonation came in kind of millisecond, etc. So this is how ELAN looks like. And see the data. So talking about can, especially those appearing in turn initial, if you can see the example. So the way I gloss this referred to Santa Barbara Convention proposed by University of Chicago. And if you take a look line 4, where I color red, Dewi jatuhnya dijemput, kan Dewi juga nggak bisa nyupir. So my interpretation as a researcher here, can is used to share common ground. And I also argue that given can is used to share common ground between speakers, it's pretty much like when you use you know in English. When English speakers use you know, they are trying to establish common ground between their interlocutor. And I argue that's the same happening, exactly the same happening within Indonesian communities. When they use can, they use it to share common ground between speakers. And that's one example. Another thing which is also very interesting I found across my data, that can also used by Indonesian speaker to marking conjoined knowledge. So what conjoined knowledge mean is you get the knowledge on your hand and you want to share those things to your addressee or to your interlocutor or to your listeners. And in that sense, you are sharing or you are marking conjoined knowledge between you as a speaker and your addressee or your listener. As you can see, Elaine 280 take, I say, kan enaknya di sana kan. So this one is pretty much like you know in English. It's used to marking conjoined. Okay, I'm going to try to very quick. Another example of na. So we did discuss about kan, and now I'm moving on to talk about na. So now across my data, I found that na is deployed by the speaker, Indonesian speaker, to initiate a turn. So what initiating turn means, you are taking, like you are talking to someone, and then you stop them, and then you take turn, and then you speak. That's initiating turn. In English, it's pretty much like well in English. So if you take a look in line 15, nah mungkin dia, in bahasa, in our interaction, we use it to initiate a turn. Moving on, another example of nah in line 27, as you can clearly see on my data, it's used by Indonesian speakers to highlight information. So if you like to highlight information to your addressee or to your listeners, we use nah in our interaction. Yeah, you can see and even you can reflect on your experience when you are using nah, you maybe or you often use it to highlight information. Okay, another interesting thing I would like to share on this occasion to all the audiences about the borrowing from English. So, as I said, remember that these participants have been living in Sydney, in Australia for many, many years, even 10 years, even more. And then given the language influenced by English, so I found in their interaction, they somehow use code mixing or code switching in the form of borrowing. As you can see, they use train. Train is English. Jadi train itu adalah kata dalam bahasa Inggris. And then this Indonesian speaker, they switch. Mereka mengganti from English into Indonesian because I assume that they are influenced by English as a dominant language spoken in Australia, especially in Sydney's context. The other thing is they also use code switching. Code switching is when you use or when you switch from English into Indonesia or the other way around, and that's how do you know. Finally, my conclusion to wrap up. So Kan is used by the speaker, Indonesian speaker, to share conjoined knowledge. That's why the assumption is they use to establish solidarity markers here between speaker and hearer. And also Na is used for highlighting information. So we as an Indonesian, we use Na to highlight information to our listener. That's why we draw our listeners' attention. And the last but not least, no significant influence, at least at the moment, from English or from the regional dialects and etc. That's it. I'm happy to share now. I'm happy if you guys have question, comment, or remark. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharif,
Thanks.
for your wonderful presentation. Now we will open a question and answer session. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to ask a question or share a comment? And then please raise your hand and then mention your name and institution. Is there any question? Yeah, I think enough for this season. Thank you very much. I have to say thank you very much to Dr. Sharif Hidayat Nasir. And then thank you for your sharing. And then all the best for your study. And so, yeah, all the best for your study. And then now we will move to our next presenter, Mrs. Saltanat Meramova from AK Kasayev Eurasian Humanity Institute Astana, Kazakhstan, with a paper topic cyber da'wah and online Islamic communication until faith in the digital era, Islamic communication and media literacy in Kazakhstan and Papua. I see there is Mrs. Saltanat Meramova, and I think she shared her video, so I will let Mr. Nirwan to share Mrs. Saltanat Meramova's video in this season. Please, Mr. Nirwan, can you help to share video from Mrs. Saltanat Meramova?
I'm sorry, please, why, Miss?
Yeah, can you share the videos, please?
Sir.
All right, let's be here, Mrs. Meramova's present.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. On behalf of Mirama Sultanat, I would like to present our theme, Faith in the Digital Age, Islamic Communication and Media Fluency in Kazakhstan and Indonesia. This research explores how digital transformation reshapes faith, learning, and communication in two Muslim-majority societies. In both contexts, technology is not simply a tool, it's a space where religious ideas are shared, discussed, and even redefined. In the digital era, Islamic communication in Kazakhstan and Indonesia is being shaped by technological innovations, social media, and distribution systems. As a result, media fluency, the ability to use, create, and interpret digital information ethically and critically, has become essential for maintaining authentic expressions of faith. Faith today isn't disappearing from the digital world. Instead, it is being redefined, translated, and taught through it. This is why digital competence and religious ethics now go hand in hand, guiding how Muslims interact with online content and express their beliefs in public spaces. Let's begin with Indonesia, where digital expression of faith is completely dynamic. Generation Z Muslims in Indonesia are deeply engaged with platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and WhatsApp to seek religious guidance and share reflection. According to Purwanitas et al., young people often blend online learning with offline mentoring, consulting local rohis, teachers to confirm or interpret what they see online. Martin Slaman also found that online communities like One Day, One Juz or ODOJ combine daily Quran reading with digital interaction, creating a sense of belonging and shared devotion. However, these same spaces also raise moral concerns about riya or showing off piety online and about misinformation. Now turning to Kazakhstan, where relationship between digitalization and religions is strongly shared by institutions and policy. As noted by Kerem Kurmanaliyev and Ongarov, social media platforms such as YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram have become key tools for dawah, religious outreach, especially among young people. Kazakh influencers and preachers now blend Islamic teaching with motivational and lifestyle content. However, this often leads to ethical challenges, especially when religion becomes commercialized and used for self-promotion. The digital transformation of religious communication is closely tied to the national program Digital Kazakhstan, which aims to promote digital literacy, education, and moral development. In both countries, media fluency acts as a bridge between religious knowledge and digital competence. It allows believers to navigate online Islam responsibly, distinguishing credible information from misinformation. Media fluency encourages ethical digital citizenship guided by Islamic values such as verification and moral integrity. It also protects users from manipulation, polarization, and exploitation of religion online. Essentially, being a faithful Muslim in the digital era now includes being a critical and ethical media user. Kazakhstan provides strong institutional examples of how education supports digital faith engagement. The Digital Institute at the Eurasian Humanities Institute in Astana integrates Moodle, e-libraries, and online assessment tools. It supports interdisciplinary studies connecting digital communication, education, and ethics, acting as a hub for media fluency and cultural development. Meanwhile, the Digital Freedom Project, a national innovative, trains over 400,000 citizens each year and aims for 87% digital literacy by 2025. By strengthening the nation's digital competence, such programs also help people engage with online religious and cultural content in smarter and more ethical ways. Together, these initiatives show how Kazakhstan's state and academic institutions actively shape digital religious literacy. Another inspiring example is the partnership between IAGI in Kazakhstan and Unsira in Indonesia. These institutions collaborate on digital learning, storytelling, AI in education, and support student exchanges and joint courses that combine technology, ethics, and Islamic values. Through these programs, students gain not only technical and linguistic skills, but also cross-cultural understanding and digital moral awareness. This cooperation proves that faith-based digital education can connect people beyond borders, promoting a global, ethical, and informed approach to Islamic communication. This table shows how Kazakhstan and Indonesia approach faith in a digital era differently. In Kazakhstan, religious communication is mostly institutional and guided by national programs like Digital Kazakhstan. Religious leaders and educators play a central role, so it's structured but also more controlled. In Indonesia, faith expression online is grassroots and youth-driven. Young Muslims use platforms like TikTok and Instagram to share religious content, making it creative and community-based. Kazakhstan focuses on digital literacy and security, while Indonesia connects media fluency with Islamic ethics such as honesty and reflection. To conclude, digital platforms are now powerful arenas for dialogue and devotion. Media fluency is not just a technical skill, it's a moral and interpretive one, central to how faith is lived in the online world. Projects like Digital Kazakhstan, Digital Belém, and the Yaki Unsira Corporation show that the education is the key to responsible and meaningful faith engagement in the digital age. Both Indonesia and Kazakhstan demonstrate that digital transformation and faith can strengthen one another when guided by values, critical thinking, and understanding. As we've seen, the digital age has not weakened faith. It has transformed the ways we shared, questioned, and lived. In both Kazakhstan and Indonesia, Islam is thriving in spaces like social media, online classrooms, and digital communities. But this transformation requires more than just access to technology. It requires media fluency, the balance between critical thinking and moral awareness. Institutions like Yagi and Unsira are showing how this can be achieved, turning technology into a bridge, not a barrier to faith. Ultimately, when we combine digital fluency with spiritual understanding, we create not just smarter users, but more mindful believers capable of keeping Islam relevant, authentic, and connected to the 21st century. Thank you so much for listening.
All right. That was presentation from Mrs. Sultanat Meramova. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. And then we're gonna move to our next presentation. We're gonna move to our next presenter, Bunda Dr. Hasbia from EIN Sorong. He gonna talk about analysis of Sharia financial sustainable amid the global crisis. So we kindly invite Bunda Dr. Hasbia. Time is yours to share the finding of your research.
Okay, thank you very much for this time. I'm so sorry, but my English not good, but I want to try presentation my time in English language. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Good afternoon. My name is, I want to introduce myself. My name is Hasbia. I am a lecturer in Institute Agama Islam Negeri Sorong. And now, next I will to present my theme, analysis of Sharia financial sustainability amid the global crisis. The global crisis that have occurred in the last 2 decades have had a significant impact on a global economy and financial stability. The 2008 global financial crisis and the economic crisis caused by the COVID-19 epidemic in 1990 were two major events that demonstrate the fragility of conventional financial system, which is heavily dependent on derivatives, interest rate, and speculative activity. The dependence cause was widespread domino effect, resulting in high losses on diffuse widespread domino effect, resulting in losses in the banking sector, undermining public confidence and exacerbating global economic inequality. Amid this condition, Islamic finance has emerged as an alternative system that is believed to be more equitable, stable, and sustainable. The main principle of Islamic finance, which profit, riba, or interest, gharar, accept uncertainly, and measure speculation, and in the phase 2 of crisis, Islamic finance does not only aim to purpose economic profit, but also promote social and moral value based on maqasid al-Sharia, namely protecting religion, life, intelligence, lineage, and wealth. However, Islamic financial institutions still face major challenges, particularly in maintaining sustainability amidst a global economic turmoil. Inflation, geopolitical tensions, and commodity market uncertainty. Sustainable has become a strategic issue that cannot be ignored because it concerns the ability of Islamic finance institutions to maintain a balance between economic performance, social responsibility, and environment sustainability. In the context of Islamic economic sustainability, not only measured by financial indicators, but so include social and moral dimensions. Islamic finance sustainability cannot be equated with the conventional concept of sustainability, which is a profit-oriented. Sharia principle demand a balance between probability, equitable distribution of wealth, and social justice and integral world. A literature review, according to the concept Sharia finance, Islamic finance is a finance system that operates based on Islamic principle, particularly the prohibition of riba, gharar, and measure. According to the Capra, the Islamic finance system aims to create economic justice, equitable distribution of wealth, and sustainable social welfare. Number 2, literature review, according to the sustainability theory in Islamic finance. The concept of sustainability in the concept of Islamic finance, not only economic aspect, but also social and environment aspect. Okay, next, according to financing stability and Islamic finance risk, the stability of financing in Islamic financial institution is an important factor in maintaining the sustainability of the system. Islamic financing is based on the principle fairness, transparency, and partnership, which distinguishes it from conventional interest-based financing. Result, astaga, so sorry. I have apa namanya ini PowerPoint, but I forget to share. So sorry ya.
Okay.
Oke,
It's okay,
ya.
Bunda.
Oke, next ini ya. Oke. eh Astaga ya. Ini nih. Oke, so sorry. The global context. Sorry nih. Saya lupa tadi. Oke. Ya. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Ya. Okay, next. Jadi, literature review according to the Islamic Resilience Islamic Finance Source and financing stability and Islamic financial risks and contribution of the real sector and economic development and Sharia financial sustainable models. Next. Nah, kita maaf, sorry, saya pakai bahasa Indonesia ya. Oke, next. Defining, it's okay tadi ya. Oke, research methodology, type and source of data. This study use a quantitative approach with secondary data from the annual financial reports of Islamic Commercial Bank in Indonesia for the period 1980 and 1923, published in by OJK and Bank Indonesia annual publication. Variables in this study are the dependence variable, why Islamic financial sustainability, measured by combination of probability, liquidity, and capital stability ratio. And meanwhile, the independence variables are operation efficiency, X3, non-performing financing, X2, and asset growth, X1. Multi-level, ya, dia ini ya, the models regression is this, Y sama dengan BO ditambah beta 0 plus beta 1 X1 plus beta 2 X2 plus beta 3 X3 plus epsilon. Next. The result, ya. Variables. Next. The results, the analysis process in study start with descriptive statistics, which are used to explain the characteristic of both dependence and independence variable order to observe that distribution patterns prior to including regression analysis. Result descriptive statistic, ya, can you see the result sustainability y and 6 ya, mean 0.082, standard deviation 0.018, mean 0.067, max 0.112. Asset growth X2 and 6 6 ya, mean 0.105, standard deviation 0.021, mean 0.081, max 0.142. Financing stability and 6, mean 0.045, standard deviation 0.12, mean 0.030, max 0.061. Next, real sector contribution X3 and 6, mean 0.482, standard deviation 0.055, mean 0.410, max 0.550. Next, classical assumption tax normality. V is 0.200 normal data. Multicollinearity is VIF-nya atau variance inflation factor ya, varian inflation factor big than 10. No multicollinearity. Heteroscedasticity V is greater is greater than 0.05, no heteroscedasticity. Kemudian hasil analisis daripada hasil daripada multiple linear regression result, can you see variable sustainability Y coefficient 0.512, C value 4.0216, signifikan dengan hasilnya ini ya 0, atau 0.012. Asset growth X2 coefficient 0.341, C value 20913, signifikan 0.034. Financing stability X2 coefficient 0.178, C value 20107, signifikan 0.048. Real sector contribution X3 coefficient 0.278, C value 20107, signifikan 0.048. Nah, the result show that all independence variable have a significant effect on the Islamic financial sustainability, where V big than V greater than 0.05. Arti the meaning if R quadrat value of 0.8021 means the 82.1% the variation in Islamic finance sustainability is explained by asset growth, financing stability, and the contribution of the real sector. Discuss the finding reinforce the theory of efficiency and stability in Islamic financial system. Efficient Islamic financial institution with good asset quality and healthy growth tend to be more sustainable in the long term. Number one, Sharia financial resilience amidst the global crisis. The result in the study show that the Sharia financial system has a relatively better level of resilience compared to the conventional financial system during the global crisis period. Number two, the effect of asset growth Sharia financial sustainability. The regression last results show the asset growth has a positive and significant effect on the sustainability of Sharia financial institution. Number three, financing stability and structural resilience. The analysis show the financing stability has a significant positive effect on Islamic financial stability. The conclusion, the result they discuss indicated that the sustainability of Islamic finance depends not only on asset growth, but also on financing stability and a real contribution to the real factor. The study concluded that the sustainability of Islamic finance are greatly influenced by operational financial, the level non-performing financing, and asset the stability of Islamic finance amid a global crisis. I think it's enough my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Bunda Dr. Hasbia, for the insightful presentation. Now I think we will open the floor for the question. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to ask or give a comment? All right. I think enough. I think enough for I think enough. Thank you for your presentation. Now we will go to our next presentation. To Laude Ivan from IAIN Sorong. He's gonna talk about the role of Islamic economic in promoting MSME independence in Papua, Indonesia. And then this paper gonna explore the role of Islamic economic in promoting the independence and sustainability of micro, small, and medium enterprise in Papua, Indonesia. To Laude Ivan, floor is yours. Excuse me, Laude Ivan, are you there? Yeah. Excuse me, Laude Ivan.
Wait.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for the time. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laude Ivan, and today I'm going to present my article titled "The Role of Islamic Economic in Promoting MSME, Micro, Small, Medium Entrepreneurs Independence in Papua, Indonesia." Before I begin, I'd like to say that this topic is very close to our reality in Papua. Many of us use small local business, from fishermen, market traders, to young entrepreneurs who struggle to grow because of limited access to fair capital. That's where Islamic economy can play a real transformative role. Islamic economic and socio-economic justice. Let me start with the foundation Islamic economic itself. Islamic economic stand on justice, balance, and welfare. It's different from the conventional system that mostly chases profit. Instead, Islamic economic integrates moral and spiritual values into every economic activity. According to Chapra 2021, the main goal is falah, or holistic success, where economic growth benefit everyone, not just the rich or the urban elite. So, when we talk about MSMEs in Papua, this is very relevant because many small business here operate on the edges of the formal economy. They deserve justice and fair access, not just charity but empowerment. If the economy only serves profit maximization, it's leave behind those who don't have strong capital or access. Islamic economy, on the other hand, ensures shared growth and moral responsibility. Next, MSME, micro, small, medium entrepreneurs, independence, and Islamic values. Now, when we talk about independence, it's not just financial, it's also psychology and social. MSME independence means having the confidence and ability to sustain a business without always relying to external support. In Islamic terms, this is related to self-sufficiency, tamkin, empowerment, and partnership. This concept encourage shared responsibility and risk sharing. According to Ubaidullah and Han 2022, Islamic finance gives small business and chance to grow without riba and without being trapped unfair contract. So rather than being just borrowers, entrepreneurs become partner in fair system. In Papua, this is crucial because independent in business also strengthens community pride and local dignity. Next role IMFIs in Islamic financial instrument supporting MSMEs. There are several instruments that make all